Brian has now officially come on as far as doing a lot of marketing and training and things like that, so that he can at least try and brush up our image, which may be including technical problems, which are a smudge on our face now. And so he'll get that set up. Julian, is Julian here, or is he out of town still? Julian, for those of you who know Julian, he's doing brokerage for us, and he looks at every single property that comes onto the market. He analyzes it, gives it a brush over, and then sends it over to me to say, hey, this looks good, this doesn't look good, how can we refine this and do this? Next person on the list here, part of the team, is Jeff. Wave, Jeff. And I'm going to be very blunt on this one. I don't know where Jeff fits yet, I just know I want him involved in the team. So he's an investor in how many deals? 5. He's an investor in 5 different deals. And he wants to learn more, know more, and be involved more. And so he does a presentation, which he'll do here in a few minutes, that'll go through kind of investing 101. What he's looking at from his point of view, not knowing anything and getting involved in investing in real estate as a passive investor. Ken Barjam, where are you?
Hiding over here in the corner.
Hiding, stand up. Okay. Ken, if there's anything wrong, it's his fault. He is in charge of we switched management companies recently, and he's the one that runs the management company. He owns the management company, and he's got about 75 years of experience in property management. Now, I just heard a story. Anybody invest in Renaissance? Okay, because we just closed on that, 2 weeks ago, and there's a lot of details that Ken is going to tell the story on, but I want to tell something about Dillard that I just learned today. And talking to Dillard, he said, man, there's a lot of grass out there because it's got a nice big green belt around it. I didn't think anything of it, but I thought the property looked good, things like that. I just learned a little while ago that Dillard went out there this weekend and saw that the grass was too long, so he went and got his lawnmower and came back and mowed the grass at Renaissance. Are you an investor in Renaissance? He's not even an investor in Renaissance, but he's working with Ken on the management company, and that's dedication. He saw there was something wrong, and he went out there and fixed it. So that's major kudos in my mind. Is ridiculously slow, and now 2 years later, we're still waiting on approval from their electrical grid to put in solar. So we don't have that done yet. But that is still working on it and still hanging in there. We did have a little problem that the lender went out and said, hey, we don't like your driveway and there's some landings that need to be replaced. So they give us a list of things that they want us to have fixed. So now we're going to have to go back and fix those. No big deal, just a normal thing, but that's what's going on with Holly Nani. Here you go. Give us an update on all the properties.
My phone's on fire. How many of you have children in the mid-20s?
Here.
You ready? Oh. So my son called me yesterday, actually called me over the weekend, and he got a hold of a book. Now, he's never been interested in real estate at all. I mean, he's a construction guy. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He reads this book, and boy's on fire. He says, I got $4,000 right now. How can I make some money? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, Brookside, 95 occupied, trending 94. It's a nice close gap. Things are good. They're June through August. Their rent, their notices they're coming up, or their leases that are expiring. We're looking at about a $55 rent increase for those people. Yesterday they got 3 notices and 3 leases. Today they got 2 more leases. We're looking at adding some cameras. We've got HVAC issues across the board. The first heat spell that hits a property, you just get overrun. I mean, the air conditioners are blowing up left and right. You've got to deal with those, and so we've been putting fires out with those. We're looking at cameras for the interior, maybe some more, just to get some hot spots just in case. The card reader is going in tomorrow on the gates, so if you've been out there, you've got to get there before closing, because otherwise you won't be able to get in. Okay, entrance gates are usually open, exit gates are always closed. And that's for leasing. We've got a pool inspection tomorrow, have our pool up and running. And I'm going to be interviewing a courtesy officer, and so this will tell you how bad I am. Manager calls today and she says, Ken, I need to set you up for an interview with this person, this courtesy officer candidate. And I said, okay. I said, tell him I'll be there tomorrow. And she said, it's a her. Anyways, that's Brookside. Sunset Heights, I don't know what to say about this place. It's kind of up there with Woodwind, 98.9, 98.9. I mean, it just doesn't get any better. That, yeah. That manager up there. Oh.
That's what we've done so far.
That's not me, that's you.
I know, you can tell them that.
Okay. So we've got these 8 guys, and 3 of these techs are really good. So they go out, it's kind of like a strike force, and we have something like this happen, and that's basically what they've been doing. Tribeca, 96.6, occupied, trending 93.1, not bad. I'm not that nervous about it. They've got chiller issues out there. When you turn it up for the first time in the summer, whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and then you're usually pretty good for the rest of the year. I think what we'll probably see is the chiller issues this week. We've got some coils we're cleaning, and almost anything we do to get this thing peaked out. We replaced 4 valves on the property that allowed better flow. Are you guys familiar with gate valve versus a ball valve? Gate valve kind of goes up and down. It's kind of like a half circle, fills the pipe. A ball valve is like a lever. They're just much more efficient, so we switch those out. Let's see. Ridgemar is currently 98% occupied. I don't have a trend yet because we don't have any information. We just got it. It also has chiller issues, and we're working through those. Villa Creek, 98 occupied, 98 trend. Let's see. They've got a new assistant manager who's doing a great job. The manager's thrilled with her. They're putting in these fire stops, and basically what it is, the city came in and said that we had to have these devices that were installed over the stoves. I don't know if you guys have seen them. They hang from the hoods. They're like these little magnetic things, and if there's a fire, they open up and put the fire out. Most of the fires that you're going to see in apartment complexes are almost always kitchen fires. That's what starts most of them. So that'll knock down our insurance and hopefully knock down any fires that we have. They had 1 down unit out there that they've been working or holding on for a while, and they started it, and it should be complete probably in the next 10 days. They're working on that, so that's just another piece of revenue for you. Riverbend, let's see. They had the same thing with ACs. I sent the guys out. They worked over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, knocked out a bunch of calls. We're switching. Darwin has been on me for a year. So he has this property in Saginaw, and basically the deal is that you sign a contract with these guys for air conditioning and heat repairs, and they will then come out at no charge and fix your air conditioners, and there are some exclusions. What I was surprised to see is that Freon is included, but most of your parts are not. At the end of the day, it's about $14 a unit to do it, which is not terribly awful. It's $26,000 a year, about $2,000 a month. If I hire an AC guy, they come at about $25 an hour. If you do the math, it's a lot cheaper. $2,100 a month versus what's that? 48,000 or 50,000. I'm sorry?
How many units in that,
All of them.
in that property? How many units?
Oh, at Riverbend, 160. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to try it on this one. If it works, we'll implement it by the fall or whatever. I think their philosophy is they're going to eat it through the summer because they're going to have a lot of calls. Is that me? They're going to have a lot of calls. In the wintertime, it's just heat calls, and so there's far less. Let's see, Woodwind, 100% occupied, 100% trend. My biggest problem out there, this property's for sale, it's under contract, I think. It is. So the manager called me and she said, I've got a retaining wall that has failed, it's railroad ties, and I need 4 drains. It's $1,750, $1,750. How many of you would fix it with it under contract? Uh-oh, I'm in real trouble. I fixed it, okay? It needs to be done. What happens is, we get a lot of water that comes down through there. If I don't put the drains in, if it rains again between now and the 60 days or so out from closing, I'm gonna have damage that I'm gonna have to pay for anyways. It's a lot easier to pay for the drains than it is to pay for the damage. Well, let's see. I think that's it. And then I've got some information for you.
Talk about Renaissance.
Oh.
Went on there.
Oh, correct. Thank you. So we took over Renaissance. We absorbed or picked up the maintenance guy that had been cleaning the pool. That was a godsend. We've got some chiller issues. I did talk about it. That was Ridgemar. Yeah. We had some chiller issues that we're working through. You want all of it? Okay, so I get out there and we get these calls, the chiller's down. And I'm thinking, great. Could call the AC guys out there and they're, breakers are tripping and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Well, come to find out, the people that owned the property before put a 240 volt piece of equipment on a 208 volt chiller, which means I have too much power. Called up a couple of people. I've got two different opinions. What I'm looking for is something called a step down transformer. What it does is it reduces the voltage from 240 to 208. The train units don't do well with too much voltage. Carrier, not a big deal. This is a very large piece of equipment. It's probably $60,000 for the chiller itself. I've got two bids, one from Palmer Services, and they're at $7,000 for the step down transformer. And I've got another one from Stowe's Electric, which is at $19,000, which about gave me a heart attack. How can they be so far apart? But that happens quite a bit between these two guys. What we're going to do is I'm going to get a third person just to kind of give me an idea of who's way out of the market. But I think you guys understand the problem. We've got to reduce the voltage. In the meantime, I'm dealing with code enforcement because they don't want anybody to be without air conditioning, and this thing, it runs great and then it just shuts off all by itself. So we're sending guys out there to flip the breakers, and it's a lot of drama. It's kind of to be expected when you take over a property. You're going to have a lot of issues. Besides that, not a whole lot's happened other than the realization that the demographic on that property is definitely very different. I think there's a lot of people there from Salvation Army, Presbyterian, and I don't know what you folks know about those organizations, but they tend to help people that are on the street a lot. And so, and I think we all know the people on the streets, some of them have some issues that, are been their whole life, and that's probably why they're there. So we're trying to work through that as well. Anything more?
Yep.
Brian Hawley.
Just one other note in regards to Riverbend, and again, this is something you've kind of all been expecting. Several of you have been calling me about this, wondering when it was going to happen. But if you saw the note here, the refi application is going in tomorrow. I don't have any specific numbers to give you because, again, we've got to do an appraisal, of course. We've got to find the right lender, the correct terms, you name it. So I don't have any specific information for you, but just know that it's going in, and that can take anywhere from 60 to 90 days. It's not unusual. So I'll keep you updated on the progress of that, and then we'll have more information for you in regards to the refi. One of the things that we're going to be doing too, just want you to know, I'm sorry, Mo, I'll stay put, is, and we're going to start it immediately, but as you know, when we take over a property, what we're going to do is go out and do some actual videos of the property so that you and other people can see exactly what's being done. So we're going to take some videos of the property in its current condition. We'll go through and show you what CapEx improvements are going to be made on the property so that you have an idea of what's going to be done. And then periodically, as these CapEx projects get either in process or completed, we'll do another video and we'll update and we'll put it out there for all of you to see. So I hope that's exciting news for everybody. It'll really allow you to have a better grasp on what's going on a daily basis at the property and let you see the progress instead of waiting for a 1-month meeting or waiting for a road trip. You'll be able to access that information and see exactly what's going on the property. So we're going to do that at Renaissance first, and we're probably going to do that sometime this week or early next week. So any questions about Riverbend or anything I can answer for you? No. Must have been great then. Okay, thank you.
Update on Park Row. We finished the paint job on the exterior. We've been pushing rents as we can so that we can prove some of that up. And just got, as soon as we get the most recent financials out, which is going to be another week or week and a half, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever. No, in the next few days, and get those over to Al Silva, who's going to list it for sale. Here's the dilemma that we're having on that. Or not dilemma. Here's the challenge that we have on that. I think the property is worth $80,000 a door, maybe $85,000 a door. And it's the same problem we have when we're looking at buying a property. Our current loan has a prepayment penalty. We're in Fannie Mae loans, and we do that for long-term financing. So we've got 12-year debt on that property. Well, there's defeasance, a fancy word for I'm going to screw you if you try and pay it off. And that defeasance, if somebody is going to buy that and doesn't want to assume our loan, there's $1 million prepayment penalty. Okay, so it's about $5,000 a door. So the broker looks at, and of course the brokers say what they think they can do, and just like we do, we try and sandbag it a little bit, and so that we can, outperform what we say. He's got a lower valuation on that, but where we're seeing everybody going after deals and after deals and after deals, I think that we can get that and have the buyer pay the prepayment penalty if they want a new loan. So $80,000 to $85,000 is where I'm expecting a price to be. The Al Silva is saying $75,000 a door, but still at $75,000 a door, I don't remember what did I put on there? 40, 50% per year return? 44? 40. And that's sandbagging the numbers and based on those facts. So we've got that we're going to look at listing that right now with Al Silva as soon as we get the new financials out. Paint job's out, done, looks good, and moving ahead. Any other questions on the current property? Yes, sir. How do we access IMS? There will be an email that goes out to everybody because that's one of the first steps. We've had to load everybody's information in there, everybody's email address, so that when that's in there and the data is in there, then they will send out an email to you to set up your login and everything else. Okay. Brian Johnson is the one who's setting all that up, and he's going through all the training, et cetera, to know how all that works in detail. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you might want to explain why refinancing Riverbend after, what has it been,
16 months. Okay. Riverbend, here's where we are on that, is we can wait and refinance. Now, in our private placement memorandum, did we put 2 or 3 years? We put a 3-year refinance in there with 50%? 52% back in 3 years. Here's my concern. The Fed's already making pushes. They're thinking about raising rates 3 more times in the next year. And we are not quite, we're not 2 years into it yet. So we'd rather refinance it now, lock in our lower rates, refinance early. So we're still on pace for that same 50%, but because we're taking it early, it's not going to be as much as that. 30, 35% maybe, but that'll lock us in for a nice long-term return on that. And that way we don't have the market risk of what's happening with interest rates, et cetera. Okay. And we also discussed the possibility of selling it, but we've got cost segregation we're doing on that. So we have accelerated depreciation, which is doing great. I don't know if anybody had that benefit on their tax return. Did anybody have big benefit on our tax returns for the losses created that first year with Riverbend? Questions? Yes, sir.
About Sunset, any chance for another refi, or is there a financing issue, or?
Sunset, we're just letting that ride right now. It's just going great. We don't have anything on the horizon. Sunset and Villa Creek, they're just smashing it. So we're just waiting and holding off on those and let them run. Let them run. Yes, sir.
For Villa Creek, it says the refi in 2019.
Yes, we're looking at Q2 of 2019 and being able to pull out. Depending on what our preliminary numbers are showing, that if we refinance then, one of the things we want to wait until then, especially on that property, because the longer we wait into like Q2, then it's not going to trigger something where it raises our property taxes. So that'll be one benefit. Another is we have some more time to go ahead and get numbers even better. We're anticipating, and again, these are preliminary numbers, that if we do it in Q2 next year, then we're looking at, you're going to have 105, 110% of your money out of that project already. And again, most of that tax-free, and still have a nice healthy return that's still going to be paid out every month. So, excuse me?
Interest rate risk.
Interest rate, yeah, there is some risk on that one, but not as much because it would be a supplemental anyway, not a refinance. We already have a Fannie Mae loan there, so this would just be a supplemental adding on to that. So it's not as pressing as Riverbend, which is a bridge loan. Okay. Anybody else? If you don't know, I'm trying to stretch a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Let's just talk about raising property taxes in your various areas, how you're anticipating increased property taxes on these properties.
Okay, sure. Thing is, let's talk about how we anticipate property tax increases. We basically know we're going to get screwed on property taxes, especially Tarrant County. They're very, very, very aggressive. And we look at that as when we buy it. For example, we've got a property that we're going to talk about in a minute, Amber Vista, under contract, property in Plano, the one that we analyzed last time. And to give you an idea, their valuation right now is, I want to say, $4.9 million for this year. Well, we're looking at paying $8,450,000. So what we do is we take that value, and depending on Dallas or Fort Worth, and depending on how high we think we're paying, we'll multiply that by about 85% and times that by the tax rate to see what the new tax numbers are. Here's the killer on this. And now everybody should be livid with taxing authorities. The taxes on all of the commercial properties, we're talking about going up the last 3 years, 30, 40% a year. Where the hell's all that money going?
Somebody's pocket.
Yeah, the government's just got all, school district, county, city, all of it. They've all got a ton more money. Where's it going? They're going to spend the whole thing. We were kicking around, how can we do this on commercial leases? Yeah. How many of you own a business and lease space? Anybody? Great, 4. On a commercial lease, if you have, for example, if I've had commercial properties, the leases have a base year expense stop, meaning that if property taxes go up, insurance goes up, then we bill that amount back to the tenant. And that would, because you don't want to take the risk as a landlord when you've got a 5-year lease on what taxes are going to be 5 years or expenses are going to be. You want to lock in what your rate is, what your return is right now, and put that risk back on the tenant. And so it's crossed my mind. I've kicked this around with a couple of people and said, why don't we put that in our leases, that whatever tax increases are, that will go get pushed back as a rent increase automatically for residents so that they can get as perturbed as us as owners. Because all they see is rents go up and they think the landlords are making a whole bunch more money. When we're talking about in some cases, over 30% of our expenses are property taxes. 30% is property taxes. Yes, sir.
Can you do that?
Can we do that? Well, yeah, the renters think, what he said is the renters think that you're ripping them off when they don't realize what it is. I think on all the renewals, you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Oh my God.
What am I going to say? All the renewal letters need to say, the property taxes on this property went up by X amount a month, so we're raising your rents by this amount. If you have a problem, here's the mayor's office or whatever you want to put on there. And so that it's not the landlord. Just go ahead and put on there that it's a property tax increase.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Jeff Younglove. I'm going to do the Multifamily 101 course. So basically, I'm just a passive investor like all of y'all here. I gave this presentation, I think, back in January sometime. And it was just kind of trying to give some more context to people about what a lot of these terms and things means, like NOIs and cap rates and stuff, and kind of how I kind of figured out some of the cool things about multifamily real estate investing and how all the pieces and parts came together. So it's obviously not an in-depth type of analysis, but it kind of gives you the basics about multifamily investing. I try to keep it as simple as possible because it sometimes gets complex. I want to make it relatable and have fun, all right? So we're going to talk about why we invest. We're going to talk about some of the key terms, single family versus multifamily, because I know a lot of people obviously here have their own homes and they think of one way of doing it when it comes to buying houses, and when it comes to multifamily, it's kind of different how you evaluate it. We'll talk about NOIs, cap rates, kind of how income and value correlate, then some fun stuff, or at least fun for me, and then we'll wrap it up. So why do we invest in real estate? Well, it is an ideal investment. So you've got income. So we've been talking about it now, and we showed you some slides up there about all the income percentages and returns we've got. So obviously there's an income benefit on it. There's also depreciation. So Darren had mentioned the different stages of a depreciation and the different ways you can cost segregate stuff now. So you're able to get those K1s that say you had negative income, but in reality you got a bunch of checks put in your pocket. That's all because of depreciation, right? Equity capture, appreciation. We go into these apartments and we fix them up like we did at Riverbend, and they take the value from $50,000 a door to $100,000 a door just by going in there and improving the properties and raising rents, right? And then leverage. Obviously, if we're spending $10 million on an apartment complex, we're not paying $10 million for it. We're getting loans on it so we can go buy more of them and kind of do more deals, right? And then control. I'm sure people in here invest in the stock market sometimes. Do you feel like you have any control whatsoever of the price going up or down or end running on you? No, me neither. So that's a big reason why real estate is also good, because we can control these things. We can look at the market we're investing in. We can respond to market changes. We can adjust rates. When property taxes go up, we can go fight the government authority. Not that we'll win, but we can go try to fight them, right? So some key terms and formulas for y'all here. So value, pretty simple. It's what the apartment costs, basically, right? NOI stands for net operating income. That's a key term you're going to hear a lot. It basically means all of your income minus all of your operating expenses. And I'll break this down in a little more detail in the next slide, but just kind of keep that in mind. And then cap rate essentially means potential rate of return on your investment if you had actually spent 100% cash on it. You didn't get a loan on it. You just paid all of your money out of your pocket. And that one gets funny as well. And again, I'm going to break these down in a little more detail as we get into this. And so when it comes to the formulas for calculating this is basically your golden triangle, so to speak. You've got value equals NOI divided by cap rate. NOI equals value times cap rate. And then your cap rate is your NOI divided by value. So just take that for a second now, and we'll kind of get into the details. We go, yeah, take a picture if you want. I've got them in there more. This is pretty standard stuff. Well, sort of. All right, single family versus multifamily here. I'm sure who all here owns a home, a single family home? How much did you decide to pay for it? What did you use to say how much you're going to pay for that house? Comps, right? All right, well, my wife told me how much I'm going to pay for the house. But yes, comps are how you do it. But basically, yeah, you're looking at all the other houses in the neighborhood. You're saying this one's more fixed up than this one. It has granite countertops, or it has wood floors. It has stainless steel appliances. You use all that, and then your realtor and you work together to figure out how much to pay for the house, because it's how much you want to pay for the house, right? Obviously, fixed up homes sell for more than original non-fixed up homes. A multifamily is a little different. The value of an apartment is based entirely on the income. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you have granite or if you have stainless steel or this and that. Obviously, if you do and you can get more rents, then you're going to have more income, and that's a higher value property. But it's really all about the income, and that's what you've got to think about when you're looking at multifamily is, if you go on some of these apartment tours, Riverbend was very nice, but you see some of the ones we just buy and you go look at them and they don't look too good, but it's all about the income, and that's why we improve them, try to raise the rents to get that income up and to get your value up, and I'll show you that here in a second as well. So here's an example. This is Young Love Vistas. This is my apartment complex. I'm just kidding. It's just a crappy picture I took online. And just kind of show you those financials in practice here for a second. There we go. So for a cap rate, we talked about it being NOI over value, right? So in scenario one, let's say for Young Love Vistas, the NOI is 150 grand. The value is 5 million. So the cap rate is 150 divided by 5. Gives you a cap rate of 0.03 or 3, to say a 3 cap, right? Pretty simple. Value, same way there. NOI divided by the cap rate. So in the second scenario, let's say the NOI is 100 grand. Your cap rate's 10%, so now your value ends up being $1 million. Let's talk a little bit more about net operating income and cash flow. So NOI, as I described before, is about all of your operating income minus all of your operating expenses. Well, what is operating income? That's your rent income. That's if you have a laundry machine area or washing area and they pay you money for that, that's operating income. If you pay people for parking spots and stuff like that, anything you generate as part of just operating the property as far as income is concerned. Late fees, application fees, all that stuff. Operating expenses is associated with every cost that is to run the property. The management fees we pay, doing repairs and sidewalks and stuff like that. What it does not include though, and this was what tripped me up the first time, was it does not include paying your mortgage. Because we could always buy the property with 100% cash, so having a mortgage isn't technically an operating expense, it's just that we chose to do that for the leverage we talked about before. But that does not come out of the NOI calculation. So it's net operating income minus net operating expense, and just remember the key thing is paying your mortgage doesn't count in the operating expense. That's where cash flow comes into play because that does factor in paying off your mortgage and putting aside stuff like for capital expenditures. You know, you put aside money every month into a fund so that when your boiler blows up or your chiller blows up, you have money set aside that you can then go use to pay for those and you're not having to suddenly cut back on your cash flows. Does that make sense? Any questions? All right. Let's talk about cap rate basics. This is the boogeyman. This is the one that everybody overuses, underuses, oversells, gets confused about. Markets, submarkets, and properties can all have their own cap rates. So you may say that the cap rate in the DFW area, and I might not get this right, is 7%, but your cap rate in Arlington is 6%, but quite frankly, the cap rate in your little market or your little neighborhood inside of Arlington might be 5, for example. It all just depends on that. It's just like saying when you hear on the news that the national real estate prices have gone up 3% last year. Well, that's great, but that doesn't mean jack to me as far as what I'm going to sell my house for because the national average doesn't really impact me. It's what's going on in my neighborhood, in my local area. And it's a rule of thumb to track how markets are performing. So if you'll see here, if you use it primarily for the value, the lower the cap rate goes, the higher the value of the apartment, and the higher the cap rate goes, the lower the value. So if you've been seeing the last 3 or 4 years, our cap rates in these markets we've been looking at have been trending down and down and down, which correlates to a higher value of the apartment. Now that's a very confusing concept when I first saw it because I'm thinking, okay, cap rate's your rate of return, but it goes down, but now the apartment value goes up. For me, that kind of confused me, and I'll show you how I figured it out. Maybe it's obvious to everybody in the room but me. But that's just the thing you got to realize. As cap rates go down, the value goes up. As cap rates go up, the value goes down. There's also multiple perspectives. If we're trying to buy a property and Darwin's doing his analysis and cranking out the numbers, we would want to justify a higher cap rate because that means it's a lower value property, whereas the person selling it is going to try to justify a lower cap rate for that because they can then raise the price. You've also got actuals and pro formas on your cap rates and stuff like that. While it's helpful, its importance tends to be overblown. I've had people ask me before what the cap rate was on a single family home I owned as a rental property. I don't know, I don't care. I know what I make every month in returns on that. So take it with a grain of salt. All right, here's the example, because this was the one that confused me the most. Let's say it's year 1 and I own Young Love Vista, as we talked about it before, and I've got an NOI of 100 grand. The cap rate in that submarket is 10%. So if I do the math, that tells me my value is now $1 million. All right, well, I get in the time machine and I go forward 5 years to go see what's going on. And then 5 years later, well, the NOI is still $100,000, hasn't gone up any. I don't know what Ken's been doing for the last 5 years, but he hasn't got my rents up. But the cap rate in the market has actually gone down to 5%. So it was at 10 and now it's down. But the value of that property is now $2 million. So I didn't do anything but own it for 5 years, and now the value has gone to $2 million. So the way I look at that is you're really looking at the return on your investment, which is your NOI, and not so much the value. And what I mean by that is, in year 1, to get that $100,000 NOI return, you had to invest $1 million, because that's what that property cost. In year 5, if you want that same $100,000 return on your investment, you now have to invest $2 million. So if you look at it that way, essentially, as your cap rates have gone down, the value of the property has gone up, but your return has actually gone down, if you think about it, because you got to invest more money just to make that same $100,000 return. So as the cap rate went down, the value went up. It costs more money to get the same return. Does that kind of make sense? It's similar to what we're seeing in today's market too. As we've been, going through this and having a look at rates of return of just what we're making, what we can try to get to the investors, that's been going down because the cap rates are going down, the value's going up, it's costing us more money to try to get the same amount of return that we were getting before. This is the fun stuff for me. It says fun stuff, so it has to be fun stuff. We've talked before, and you've heard Darwin talk about a $1 increase in NOI equals a $14.28 increase in value of your property. So how does that actually work? So let's take these two examples. On the left-hand side, I've got an NOI of $100,000, a cap rate of 7. Do the math, and you get $1,428,571.43. On the right-hand side, let's increase the value by $1, and you get that other long number with a 1,4, blah, 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 blah. If you do the math on that, you will find the difference between the two is $14.28. It's just the simple math. And if you want to do it even simpler, you just do 1 for the extra dollar divided by 0.07, because that's the increase in whatever, and you get $14.28. That's what we mean when we say by that. Now, again, if your cap rate was lower or higher, that $14.28 would be a different number, and I can't do 1 divided by 6 in my head, but you guys get the point. Questions? All right, now here's the real fun one. This is the one that really excites me. I know, not that. Okay. This is what blew me away when I started looking at this stuff in real estate. This is what kind of convinced me and sold me on this stuff. This is a big deal. So take all the stuff we've talked about now, all the math, all the calculations, how, if your dollar in rent equals $14.28, all that good stuff, right? So let's assume you own an apartment complex and you've got 1 vacant unit, and that vacant unit rents for $700 a month, right? And you're in a 7 cap submarket. Well, what does that cost you as an investor, as somebody who owns a complex? What is that really out of your pocket? Well, let's do a little math. So 7 months, $700 a month times 12 months gives you $8,400 a year in lost NOI. That's just the income you would have if that thing was actually rented. Well, then you do the math on the value calculation. $8,400 divided by 7 equals 120 grand. So the value of your apartment complex is now $120,000 less than it would have been if you had that 1 unit rented. I don't know, one $700 unit equals $120,000 in value. That's pretty powerful to me. Well, let's take it a little further. Imagine you've got a 100-unit complex with 10 vacancies. So you're at 90% occupied. 90% isn't bad, right? That doesn't sound too bad, huh? Well, if you didn't get those things rented, that's $1.2 million in decreased value because you have those things vacant. So that's why yes, $1.2 million. Holy cow! And that. That's why occupancy matters. That's why getting your expenses down. All the water saving stuff Ken is working on to decrease our costs on that. All of these things, every dollar counts everywhere you put it in there to kind of make these numbers up so you can get your value, so you can get your refis and get your cash back, so you can continue to get your cash flows. Final thoughts. Multifamily value is driven off the income. There's a key driver on that. NOI is what the income is. The higher the NOI, the increase in value. Cap rate's a good metric. It helps you evaluate the market, but its importance tends to be overstated, so don't get fixated on it. My father-in-law, he's not here on the webinar, I hope, always asks me about cap rates, and half the time I don't know. Actual rate of return is the key metric. So again, when it comes down to it, is what you're getting back for the money you're investing. What is your rate of return on that? That's what the real driver is. Small changes in income and occupancy can have big results, as we just saw, and real estate investing is an ideal way to reach financial freedom. Any questions? That was so perfect presentation. Nobody has a question. That's phenomenal. All right, well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
This is Amber Vista Apartments. It's in Plano. Okay. Who was here? Who was not here last week? Yeah, last month. None of us were here last week. Okay. Wow, about half of you. Okay. Well, what we did last month, is we went through the numbers on analyzing an off-market deal. Now, an off-market deal, when you see one of those, they give you a rent roll and financials and how much they want for the property. And then you got to figure out everything else. So what we did is we took those and we put it into what I use as a quick analysis spreadsheet to analyze that. And I looked at what the rents are and analyzed that whole thing, and we went through the whole analysis to see if it was a good deal. Well, we did that. We've been negotiating the transaction, and this is a property. I looked this up. I've been working on this for 13 months, an off-market deal. And so we now have it under contract, have an agreed upon deal. Now, this is Amber Vista Apartments. It's in Plano. Give you an idea where it is. It's on the east side of 75 on 14th Street, which is right down the street. Anybody know Plano? So you go on 15th, straight on down to Jupiter, and it's right down there a block north at 14th and Jupiter. Take Jupiter south and over on the freeway a little bit, you're right there at State Farm. You see where the property is up there? All this is the $1 billion State Farm area. And right there where those parks are, I can't get up there high enough, is right where downtown Plano is. Okay, what can you tell me by looking at the property right there? Anybody?
60s built.
60s built. Flat roof. Deferred maintenance. Do we see anything else on this? So yes, you see the mansard style roof. That says that it's late 60s, early 70s. Okay. And pretty much that's all you can really get from that is just the age and the flat roof. Okay. So those are two things to deal with. So my first question would be, okay, is it individually metered or master metered? How much deferred maintenance, etc.? I'm sure more than that have, okay? Because if you've invested in anything, I'm sure you've read it, filled out all the paperwork, and really didn't read much of the whole 160 pages. Who's read every page of the 160 pages? Okay, how many of you are engineers or lawyers? My nemesis. Okay. This is the investment presentation that's in the very back of the private placement memorandum. Just finished this afternoon, and in doing that, we have, this is what Brian now takes this information and puts it together with all the other information. You don't have to take pictures, everything else. You'll have a private, you can, I don't care if you do, but you're gonna have a private placement memorandum. Jeremy will have that within the next week, okay? So, we're paying $8,450,000. Just so you know, this is a ridiculously high price. 70s construction, $96,000 a door. Okay?
Why?
Why? Why is it a good deal, or why is that high?
Go.
Okay. I think that they probably paid about 35 grand a door for this 4 or 5 years ago. Anything anybody bought from 2010 to 2015, they're making a killing on. Okay? However, this is Plano. The growth in Dallas-Fort Worth has been huge. Plano has had huge growth. It's always going to be full. It's a great location, a great submarket. What are the 3 most important words in real estate? There you go. Somebody else got it right. Tie it up. Okay. The location is relative to the price. Now, because of this where it is in this submarket, we look at these and say, how can we make money on this? It's $96,000 a door. Does that even make sense? Well, using Ken's rough rule of thumb, you need to have rents of at least $960 per unit to have this make sense. Okay. Well, we don't have enough information yet, but just so you know, $96,000 purchase price, closing costs $4,800 a door, capital improvements. Holy crap, Ken's gone batshit again. He wants $25,000 a door in CapEx. Is that high? For those of you who don't know, just nod yes. Okay, this is everything. This is replacing everything. Okay. Operating account, that's just for our cushion of 100 grand. Miscellaneous costs of 82.5. Just so you know that miscellaneous cost, that's really just in there so that I have a nice round number for capital required. And because there's always some expense that comes up or something that happens. So that's where we are. There will be all in at $127,000 a door. $127,898 to be exact. Yes, sir. There is foundation work needed. 33.6 year 3 cash out refi. We also have this loan information. That's the loan that we're looking at getting. Okay. It's a bridge loan with Legacy Texas Bank. We've already presented it to them. They like it. And so that's, now we're paying how much for it? $8,450,000. But we're getting a loan for $7,455,000. How's that, you say? Because we roll in the capital expenditures that we're going to put into this into our loan. So we're getting a loan for the purchase and for the CapEx, which I think is why Ken likes to spend more money, because he knows it's borrowed.
I will justify it. Give me a second.
I will give you a second to go ahead and justify that. Hold on a second. Okay, so now the next page. Current rent schedule. Yes, ma'am. Why are we getting a bridge loan? That is a very good question. We use Fannie Mae debt or agency debt for our long-term loans. Those are the permanent loans that we're getting. And just by the term of a bridge loan is we have a value that's here that we're going to rapidly increase the value of the property. So we need a bridge loan to get us, we need the bridge to get us from here to here so that we can put our agency debt on. And because right now we wouldn't be able to borrow enough money, we wouldn't be able to get that loan with agency debt. So we have to do a bridge loan to get us over that hump. Make sense? Okay. Current rents are $961. How's that for Ken's little 1% trick? Pretty close there, right? However, and that's $1 a foot. Okay? But with $25,000 a door in CapEx, we better be able to make this a gorgeous property. So we're projecting rents at $1.31 a foot. Okay. This is not even touching the Class A properties that are in the area that are getting $2 a foot in rent. So what we are going to do is we're going to take this C quality property. We're going to have to completely change the whole tenant profile. We don't have to, but we're going to shoot for, I'll be blunt, we're going to shoot for the yuppies that are going to live there that can't afford to live in the Class A at $250 a foot, the very expensive units, but we're going to make these things real nice. In a second, I'm going to have Ken tell you everything we're going to do. But that'll get us to $1.30 a foot in rent. Now, just so you know, when I looked at this a year ago, they were thinking we could get to $1.30 a foot in rents. So that's still a possibility. Ken. Yes, sir.
Is there like apartments?
Is there like apartments? Yes, all over DFW that the same thing is done.
$1.36
That are that and higher, yes. Okay, built in 1970, individual flat roofs. We're going to take this to a better property. Now, before I get into these, Ken, come here for a second. Current occupancy, I want to say, is about 94%. Okay. What do you want to do to this property to make it so special? And how are you so arrogant to think that you can do this?
All right. How many of you?
Here, take this.
How many of you are lifestyles people? Okay. How many of you know Supriya Surryman and the Bricks? Okay. Or Lane Bean. How many of you know Lane Bean? Okay. For those guys, I've done this before. This will be number 5 or 6. The idea is to create a whole different image of the property. It has to have the location in order to do it. The CapEx are extreme. There is not, it's not, we're just not gonna go in there and throw some paint on it and call it good. We're gonna change the way this place looks. I had some pictures, but I can't give it to you. If you've seen the bricks, you get the idea. You take a flat roof building and you turn it into something that looks like it's way newer than it is. The other side of it is, if you go into Plano, one of the things you'll notice is that there's a lot of mid-rise and high-rise stuff in there, okay? They are expensive. I mean, their one bedrooms are, $1,200, $1,300 to start. The target market for us is not those people. It's the people that can afford that but don't want to pay it. Does that make sense? That's target number one. Target number two, which is the backup side. So if we got, and we only have 88 units to do this with, and all the other buildings were smaller. 55 was the last, 53 was the last one, the bricks, that's probably the biggest one of all of them. But I've done this over and over and over. The trick is to have one or two different marketing strategies. So on this one, we're after those people that can afford it but don't want to pay it, that are moving into Plano. The second piece of it is, there are people in that neighborhood that have lived there for years. Their families live there, their mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. They love that neighborhood. They don't want to move away from their family. And they have risen, their income has grown to a point where they could afford those mid-rise and other places, but they don't want to pay it either. That's not a large percentage. It only has to be, think of it, it only has to be 2, 3, 4% of that population in that area. Those people are my targets. So when you take a property like this, you've got to have more than one strategy. And so we're employing those two strategies. So let me just give you a sense of what's going to happen. The roofs that are on there are actually in really good shape. They're TPO roofs, they just need some repairs. The air conditioners are in good shape, the boiler's going to be replaced. On the siding and the exterior, so as you can see, it had mansard roofs, okay? All of that comes off. We go to a hardy board siding, which is horizontal. The worst case scenario is $175,000, which is a lot on a per unit basis, especially. Let's see. Obviously, paint wood. Railings are 3 foot tall. They've got a 6, 7 inch gap between them. Those all have to be replaced. The upper walkways are going to be redone. That's the concrete walks on the top. The flat work, all the sidewalks around anywhere that there's any issues with those. The real finish to the outside, carports are included. The parking areas are in pretty good shape. They don't need a whole lot of repairs. That'll be an easy fix. Carports you have to have. I mean, if you're making, my target market is probably somebody that's making around $60,000 a year or more. One or more people, okay? If you're making that kind of money, you probably have a decent car or a car that you really like. I gotta have carports. They run $1,100 to $1,500 a space. And that's the standard. It's almost a T-style. It's not 4 poles. It's one pole in the center. Y'all familiar with those? Okay.
Can we lease those out?
Oh yeah, yeah. Here's the caveat. When you go to those big places, everything costs you extra. Okay. The way that I get to that rent number is by rolling it all in. Okay. So that when you show up, you get a covered space. It's included in your rent. You don't have to pay extra for it. The fencing is all going to be replaced. There are patio areas out there that have never really been used. The sliding glass doors, they're coming out. We're going in with French doors. They'll lead out to a private patio. So when you add carports and private patio, it's a big plus. Okay. Beyond that, all the perimeter fencing, all the lighting, all the windows, all of the doors, all front doors, interior doors, jambs, baseboard. On the inside, you get, let's see, cabinets, countertops, which is granite, appliances, maybe stainless steel if I can get a pretty good deal, plumbing fixtures, electric fixtures, all new flooring. Let's see, there's a mild redesign of the floor plans. If you've been to any of the properties I just talked about, Barclay for Lane B, The Heights for Lane B, Heritage for Lane B, Supriya's property, The Bricks, I redesigned the interiors of those by opening up the kitchens, by going into the bathroom areas and making changes to make the bathrooms more appealing, by going into even the closets, double hanging one side of the closet, single hanging the other, and add the shoe rack, okay? You don't see that in just your regular old B apartments. They just don't spend the time. Let's see, doors, jambs, base, we talked about, retexture and paint. All of the walls, everything comes out. So the drywall is there, but we go in and we make all the drywall repairs over the 40 or 50 years this place has been around, there are bows and bulges and patches from, Joe Schmo, the maintenance guy who didn't really know what he was doing. All of those come out and they all get redone. So it looks like brand new walls for like $800 is what it costs. On top of that, they're obviously going to paint. It's two-tone paint. You'll have all that. So you have all these LED light fixtures, everything is set up. The pièce de résistance. So I wanted something that nobody else had. Okay, so did you know that if you were buying a boat like me, you could have a system in your house where it's like an iPad. When you walk, it's mounted in the wall. From that, how many of you have Alexa? Yeah, okay. That's connectable too. Alarm systems? Yeah. So this system will allow you either from your phone or from the pad to turn on the lights, whether you're home or not, from your phone, set the temperature, turn on the alarm. What else is there? Anybody else? Temperatures, lights, alarm? Huh? Or you can lock the front door, oh yeah. You can open it for your kids or the maintenance guy or whoever, remotely, okay? All of this that nobody else is doing in apartments for $800 per unit, okay? So the idea is to have all of these things that just make it so desirable they can't pass it up. It is within a mile of the downtown area, okay? I saw this and I wanted to do this immediately. You guys have no idea how hard it is to convince him, okay? And I don't know what happened, to be honest with you, because I sent it to him and he's never gonna prove this. And a little bit of time went by, and I think what he did was he researched the stuff that we've already done. And he said, aha, he does do this and it does work. The trick is to get in within about $150, maybe even $200 below those mid-rise people. Okay, that's what we need. Because with that, anybody that's frugal is going to save that money and they're going to come out there. And the landscaping on this thing will be extreme because it has to be. So here's the philosophy. When we did Brian's property, Riverbend, when we talked about it, we all agreed. We want them to drive up to the property, get out of their car and go, wow, this place is really cool looking, right? They like it already. They go into the office, they talk to the manager, great salesperson, tells them all about the property, takes them out, and when they open the door, wow, again, because everything is new. It's way better than what they expected, okay? If we can do that, we can get to those rents, okay? It works, it's worked everywhere. I've never had a problem with it. My biggest problem is I can't keep up with moving the rents up fast enough to get out in front. The other problem I have is that, so we have to do this through attrition, right? There's leases on the property. We have to do it as they expire. So the timing is everything. The first 30 days we really do nothing. We go in and we stand there and we wait to see what are the problems that come with this property, because there's always those very little secret things that pop out and blow up on you later, right?
Like a chiller at Renaissance.
Yeah, like the chiller at Renaissance. You want to see what's going on and get a feel for it before you commit any funds. Because if there's something you've missed, okay, we did the due diligence on this, and I'm going to tell you, I'm a human being, I'm not perfect. And every time I've done a due diligence, there was always something that manager knew or that seller knew, but nobody said a word. They just let it go and let it ride, and they hope you don't find out. Most of the time, it's relatively small after we inspect it, because we do a real detailed inspection, and Darwin always has on all properties. So once that period is elapsed, then you start setting up your attrition. You look at them in blocks and you say, I need at least 4 to 10 units per month, okay, to turn. Because the crews that work out there, I need to keep them busy. That's how we get it done at the price that we want to pay. So I'll just give you a sense. Interiors, add the windows, you're probably around $14,000 or $15,000 a unit, okay? When you add the extras, the smart home or whatever, it goes up a little bit more, and then the outside's going to be the remainder. I've already got bids on a lot of this stuff. I just did it in 4 other places. I have a project that we're just starting. You guys know Fort Worth at all? Anybody here, Fort Worth? Okay, Camp Bowie and Bryan Irvin. On one side of Camp Bowie and Bryan Irvin is Ridgely. Okay, real nice area. Everybody wants to live down there. It's old, kind of like old Fort Worth. Directly across the street of Bryan Irvin is a little place called Como.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. We've got a bunch of Air Force pilots connected to you know who, and we find this deal. It is right across the street. It's actually on a little street called Fletcher, but it's on the corner. It's on the corner of Fletcher and Bryan Irvin. It is right across the street. We're doing the exact same stuff to it. Okay. Same thing. The pillars outside, the redesign, the heavy landscaping, adding carports, adding the smart home stuff, all of that. It's gotten to a point with Darwin where you have to really kind of come up with something to be able to find a deal that'll work. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? It's brick. Yeah, we'll do a whole patio area as well in the center courtyard. There's not a pool. It's a very few people really use the pool, and I haven't really okay, well, does anybody know what percent of the population uses your amenities like pools and gyms and stuff? Anybody have an idea? 5-10%. So I'll do away with 5 or 10% of the market for that. It's worth it to me. But what I want is to bring a product that maybe some people will stretch to afford. You know what I mean? The people that wanted to pay the B rent instead of the B plus rent. And then on the other side of the spectrum is to offer something of equal or greater value, really, than the A product, at a lower price. And believe me, it's going to get competitive up there. You know what I mean? They're already competing hard on the A stuff. So, yes, ma'am.
How dependent are you for projecting that rent on the turnover and attrition?
The turnover and attrition has never really been a problem. I was going to tell you another piece of that. So the idea is that we're going to introduce somewhere between 4 and 10 units per month. It's a 1-year deal. There's 12 months worth of leases out there. Each time that we've done this, I was always real nervous. It's a really scary proposition if you think about it, because you're going a long way for rent. 30 cents is a big jump. And you always wonder, is it going to work? But after it's gone so well over and over and over, you have to believe in the system and the product that you're doing. One of the things that I noticed that was the biggest shock, what percentage of the people that live there now do you think will stay? Any guesses?
20.
20? Huh? 10%. 10%. So here's what we found. About 20 to 30% of the people that live there can afford those rents. You would never know what to look at them, to talk to them, to listen to them go on about how much the rent is. But once you get 2, 3, 4 units done, and let me just give you an idea about the process. You don't do the whole project over the course of 12 months. You do the exterior in the first 3 or 4 at the most. Why? Okay? 2 things occur. Curb appeal is immediate. You cannot sell those A-class people a B-plus property if you say it's going to look really cool. They just don't believe you. The second thing that happens is the people that live there go crazy because they see what's coming and they're going, oh my God, this is unbelievable. The hardest part about this is saying, okay, talking that A person into living next to the C person. That's the hard part. Okay, but if the finish is good, and if you weed through your tenants, you do a good job of controlling what they do and what their activities are, you don't have any problem. They are so thrilled for the time they're going to get to live there that they will walk that fine line. They will pay their rent on time every month so that they don't get to be one of the units we get to do early. You know what I mean? Because it came up and all of a sudden. There are people who will realize it and they'll just say, I want to move. Will you let me add my lease? And I'll say, well, let me look at my schedule. Do I have enough units this month? No. How about next month? Okay, fine. And you know what else we do? Every single person that lives there, every single one, guess what they get when they move? They get their security deposit back in full. It's help you money to move. Okay? When you think about it, I need goodwill. Last thing I can do is go into Plano and go kick 88 families out into the street and not end up on the news. I can't have that, right? You offer this money. You offer assistance. We help people find places. If they can't find a place on their own, we start looking for them. Okay? Why not? It's goodwill, and it makes things a lot easier. I've done it at every single property, and it's worked every single time. This one is going to be the most fun. And I'm glad that Darwin's going to jump off this cliff with me, and I'm not going to let him down. Okay, I know this will work. Yes, sir.
So talk a little bit about risk, because if you think about where some of us think we are in the market, maybe on top of the bubble, maybe close to the top, then if there's a downturn, we've always been told that the A's take the biggest hit, next in line B's and then C's. What's your feeling of the risk that we would be taking on?
I can't give you a percentage or a number. What I can tell you is I'm one of the biggest proponents of that philosophy, is to stop and think about what's going to happen. My perspective has been you always have to be able to survive a $200 plunge in rent. Okay? If you can survive a $200 plunge, you're okay. If you take this, what's 200 times 88? I don't know, 16, 17,000, something like that, right? Okay. So, what do you think the distribution would be on this? I don't know. Darwin, do you know? It's on your sheet.
It is, but not in year one. Let's see here.
Well, go to year 2 or 3, whatever, when this would.
Year 3.
Okay.
278, 163 after 278,000.
All right. So times 16. The idea is to put yourself. For me, what I counsel people is I say, put yourself in a position that if the market plunges, you don't go below your debt, your bottom line. Okay.
We can go down $23,000 a month.
Okay. So it would be better to have that gap, so that even if it crashes, you don't have to reach into your pocket. Okay, that's kind of where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they all go for me. I have the same philosophy on refi and debt. Okay, you shouldn't have to. If it crashes, you should have enough protection. Does that cover risk or?
Yeah, I mean, one way I look at it is how much you can take a hit on occupancy.
No.
You can calculate it the same.
Same thing, yeah.
Occupancy is, but your occupancy isn't what really gets affected. It's your rents. I mean, you're going to adjust your rents to control the occupancy. Then now you're in the management world.
Okay, so in the end, it would be the same.
The math is the same. It's just a different perspective.
It's economic occupancy either way,
Yeah.
whether it's lost to lease or vacancy.
If you have a really good product in a really good location, you're going to get the attention. And if you're not priced at the top, you're going to be where the people that can afford it are going to go. And those are the people that we're looking for. Okay. As far as the cost, it is $25,000 a unit. It's huge, but there is no other way to do it. You can't do it for less. I mean, if you can, I'll do it, but I doubt it. The amenities are going to be there's a barbecue area, a pergola, barbecue area. It's a standard package. Same thing we do on all the sites. Yeah.
But you know
if they have pets, a dog park.
Ken, the other thing to think about, if you look at who's going for a pool, it's at 20, maybe 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
So really, what you're probably going to do is push your resident age up a little bit, which will maybe buy some more stability.
And that's a really good point. So the demographic.
Look at the unit mix.
Sir?
Look at the unit mix.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of twos.
All twos.
Yeah. So you're getting, what we're after is 30, 35 plus. Okay. Those are the people that come in. Or it could be 20s, a couple. Okay. There's plenty of these people out there.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to get to 60 grand. 2 people making 30 grand a year will qualify.
Yeah. But even if you're like so many of us that work at home, you can take down a 2-bedroom, one's your office and the other, and your rent structure is still not.
Okay. And I see a lot of people my age doing that. I mean, you know what I mean? That are older, that want to have an office at home or some for some other space. They're also doing it. Those people tend to be the people that actually move in. It's weird because you either get an eclectic group of younger people, or you get an older group, and they don't tend to mix too much. It'll be interesting to see what that is over there. My guess is going to be probably the older people. I don't know what they're doing anymore. They love it. 6-foot cedar fence, horizontal, all of that. No gates. You can't access it from outside. You have to come into it only from the living room typically. You walk in and you can get to it. That way you don't have anybody coming and going. It's a little bit more secure. It's a lot cheaper because gate hardware, for every gate that I put in, cost me $350. Okay, I can't afford that. I'm sorry, he can't afford that. You can't afford that. Right? Another question. Oh my God. Yes, I love this. No. How many of you are on Brookside? Right? the amount of people there's probably 30 people on that entire property that use that gym, maybe, okay? And half of those people die out after the first week of trying to start working out. You know, I'm done. You know, and a new guy moves in, oh, there's a gym, I'm gonna go work out and, you know, make my girlfriend happy.
Remind them, 288 units.
Yeah, 288 units. Sir, you go to the gym where you live. That's my point. 24-hour fitness, all of those places, that's where people go. I know my son goes there 2 hours every single day. He's got the biggest arms, it's so embarrassing. When he was 15, he thought he could take me. Went in the living room, we got down, put him down on the ground a couple times, and he said, oh, Dad, I'm sorry. Are you okay? I said, I'm fine. Are you okay? He said, oh, yeah, but do you think I'll ever be able to take you? And I said, by the time you can, you won't want to. Thank God we're here because, I mean, he's got arms. He looks like Kai, you know? Hey, Dad. What else? Yes, sir.
Is the parking lot asphalt?
Parking lot's asphalt. At this point on a rehab, I much prefer it. It's cheaper to fix. Okay, and I don't just overlay. I do cut and patch and then seal coat. Because if you just do an overlay, the problems are still underneath.
I cut him off because there could be 1,000 questions. And a lot of the things that are going to go on in that property are going to change and morph as we get in there and decide, oh, it's going to be better to spend money over here and come over here and do it differently over here. And that's all part of the fun and the art of doing these projects. But what you need to be comfortable with is, can you hit the rents or not? Because it doesn't matter how good it looks. None of that matters if the numbers don't work. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that you heard his passion for that. And every single time he comes up and he wants me, he's dragging me toward, hey, do more, do more, do more. And I have not wanted to do that because of the risk reward and, quite honestly, the validation on whether or not it justifies spending that money. We can make the Taj Mahal, but if we can't rent it out and can't make money on it, it doesn't matter. Okay, so there's a yin and yang to this. And this time, with spending that amount of CapEx, it works because the numbers work. You follow? Okay. For example, just to give you an idea, this is, if you've noticed, they're all 2-bedroom units. There's one 3-bedroom unit, it's an anomaly. But they're all 2-bedroom units. So you're talking about raising rents $250 on average. Talking about still a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhouse unit. Wow, that sounds crazy. For $1,475 a month. Okay, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or a 2-bedroom, 2 bath for, it's a small unit though, 895 square feet for $1,150. But that's in Plano. That's still inexpensive to live in Plano. Let me elaborate on that, yeah. Because we talked about this, that same thing. You go in there and you look out the layout and you see what rent is. Because how many of you can tell me how many square feet are in this room? Mm-hmm. Virtually nobody. There's an architect in here somewhere that'll say, yeah, da, da, da. But you got to look at what the rent is being charged. Per square foot is skewed. Not only that, you have smaller units, it's higher rent per square foot, et cetera. Yes, sir.
I use this little thing, the internet. The average home price is $385, and the average rent in that Plano zip code is $1,750.
The average rent in that zip code is $1,750 a month. Average home price $385,000 in that zip code. Okay, so here's the question. Here's the thing. $25,000 a door in CapEx. We're replacing everybody. How many of you think you like what Ken had to say about what we're going to do in those units? Okay. How many of you then again, I'm trying to use this to educate you on the thought process of where you go in analyzing this deal or any. So in doing that, do you believe those rents? Do you believe that you can get an average of, what is our average on this? Now, forget about $1.31. That doesn't matter. An average rent of $1,255 a month. Is that believable in Plano? Okay. So what this should do for you as an investor, what I want you to think about on this deal, any deal, is Is it making sense? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Can it be all screwed up and something happens? Yes, absolutely. But you have to at least go in knowing what step A, B, and C are going to do. If something doesn't make sense to you, you shouldn't invest. You need to say, hey, yeah, that all makes sense to me. Okay? So $1,255 average rent is what we're going to look at getting for a 2-bedroom unit. That's still cheap, which is why I said, yes, we can spend 25 grand a door in CapEx. DeSoto, Texas, Riverbend. How much did we raise rents there on average? Average $170 a unit in DeSoto. Okay? And we didn't.
And your CapEx was how much per door?
And our CapEx there was $20,000 a door. Yeah, and that included roofs. That included a whole lot more infrastructure, flooring. I mean, everything. Okay. And we also had people when we were redoing units there that said, hey, I want to move out of mine and into this other one. I would say about 20% of the people will turn around and say, I still want to live here. I want to live in a nice one. So that's going to happen. So again, I want to move on from the rents. Now let's look at what the pro forma is. Here is the current income per the owner. Now this is 12 months of collections. They're collecting over the last 12 months, $1,020,000. Now, if you take the last 3 months, that number's higher. I do a minimum and a maximum saying, hey, if I screw it up, what am I going to collect? If I do really good, what am I going to collect? And then I do right in the middle where I do a projection at. So you can say, wait a minute, okay, what's my downside? What's my upside? Where is it he's projecting? So you can say, am I comfortable with this? So we're at collecting $1,020,000 over the last 12 months. If you take the last 3 months annualized, it's closer to $1,060,000 or so. So we're saying that we can collect an extra $100,000 that first 12 months, which is 8% more. Is that a realistic number? Who thinks that's realistic? Okay, lost a few of you. Okay. So is that realistic? Good. Now let's look at expenses. Hey, Ken.
Sorry.
What would you project operating costs for this property be? A simple number.
$5,200 maybe.
$5,100 to $5,200 a door. Okay? Short answer. I'm projecting expenses at $5,848 per unit. Now, one item that stands out when I looked at this, their insurance right now is $54,000. Okay, for 88 units. You know why? You want to tell everybody? Okay. 2 buildings had fires in them, two separate fires. Those units have all been upgraded. They're also now sprinkled in those buildings. They've had a lot of work done to them. So in those, we may not need, those already have new dual pane windows. Those already have sprinklers. They've had a lot of upgrades. They have new doors, things like that, new cabinets. So we should be able to save some money on that. It's about 16 units or so. So that's an update on that. Taxes, here's the other one that you want to look at. Okay, property taxes. Current tax bill for 2018 is $135,000. I'm budgeting $165,000. Okay. If we put it under contract right now, when are we going to close on it? 60 days. Okay. So that'll be the beginning of, let's see here, July, August. So say August. Well, we'll have August, September, October, November, December. We'll have 5 months at that lower tax rate before they start to kick it in. So we use a blended tax rate year one because we're looking at the first 12 months. Our year one is not a calendar year. It's the first 12 months. So those 5 months will be lower because it'll be lower the tax rates. Something else in Plano. Plano has been better than some that I've seen as far as looking at, I forget the exact term, where they have to look at the values of all the other properties around it. Well, our property is going to have around it, going to have some lower and some higher, but that's going to keep us on the lower end of the scale. So I don't think we're going to get anywhere near the valuation of 85% of our purchase price. So I think we're going to be real good on that, which you'll see me adjust in year 2 from 165. Okay. We're also doing water savings, so we're lowering the expenses on utilities. Plus, we're putting in LEDs, everything else in that same amount. Maintenance and make ready, they spent $23,000 on budgeting $25,000. We only have 2 employees, and everything is new, so payroll is a little bit lower also. So $5,848. Okay. I look at this property manager looks at it, we all look at that and say that should be a $5,000, $5,200 a door expenses. Is $5,800 a realistic number for expenses? Are you comfortable with that? Okay. So is that good? Man, again, look at all these on yours. Okay, the rest is just, company expense, tax returns, things like that, reserves that get set aside. Now here's what's funny. We have $22,000 in reserves set aside. With a bridge loan, we're not actually setting that aside. So it's on here as far as being taken out, but it won't really be taken out. Okay, so technically I could go in there and say, okay, that's going to be 0 because they're not going to take anything out on a bridge loan. Okay, but Jeremy's right there, put it back. Okay. So on ours, $201,000 in cash flow year 1, but I'm going to show you what we did to mess that up even more. Debt coverage ratio is good, cap rate of a 7.6. This is a current cap rate of 5.5 on current numbers, which is a completely realistic number in Plano. Okay. But based on our new number, 7.6, and cash on cash 5.3. However, is this a yield or a value play? Value, definitely value play. Okay, so what I did is I took those same numbers, my sponsor performer right there, and that moves over to our 5-year projections. Now that's with a 14% collection loss and a 6% vacancy loss. So 20% vacancy and collection loss. Because we turn right around and we've raised the rents $250. They're not paying that, so it takes time to burn that part off, which is why it's so high in year 1. Follow that? So again, any other performance, look and see, does that make sense? Are they actually going to be able to collect what they say they are? We already looked and said, hey, we're only looking at collecting a little over $100,000 more in year 1 than the previous owner did. Because you're better off to have a little bit of vacancy and pushing all the rents. And because the net collections go up. I like to look at collections month over month. How much did we collect last month? How much are we collecting this month? Is that a positive number? Okay, so that's what I look at. But you're still going to have some type of vacancy. Okay, 2% DFW rent growth. I can see that. There's going to be places that are higher and there's going to be places that are lower. Plano at 75 and 635, that's going to have a lot of growth. So that's why I justify that. And I generally use 4% because I wouldn't use that growth. For example, we looked at a property in San Antonio. I couldn't justify anywhere in San Antonio with 4% rent growth. If we were buying a property in Grand Prairie or Oak Cliff, I couldn't justify that. It all depends on what market, what sub-market you're in on whether or not you can justify that. Okay. If you notice now, year 2, look at this real quick. Property taxes, did I adjust for property taxes? Yes, we went from 165 to 200. Okay, so that's what I think the new top property tax are going to be. Then, because we are adjusting that, that's about 85% of our total purchase price. They're not going to see a new loan. They're not going to see a sale that's going to catch their attention to raise property taxes higher. So that just goes up 2% per year. The problem is that rehab is going to take 8 to 12 months. So we're really not going to send out distributions pretty much on that deal. So what we did is we said, let's take that out, so that investors don't think that they're going to be getting that return the first year. So let's remove that. And really what the thought was is, let's take that $200,000 out and lower the amount of capital required by $200,000. And if you do that, the returns for everybody go up actually 0.9%. If you lower the collections from 3.8 to 3.6, then the returns go from 15% to 15.9. There's some fuzzy math that goes on. As far as debits and credits, where do you take that $200,000 out? And we need the full amount of the cash to close on the property. So we don't have that amount of cushion. So all I did is took that $200,000 out year one and said, we're not paying pretty much any distribution year one, because we've got a big CapEx job. We've got a lot of things that we need to do. I'd rather keep that as reserves, and depending on how we do, then do a big bonus later on. But you go ahead and set that aside. Again, another way to be conservative. Now that did change our overall yield, just to show you, because I just made that change. And in making that change, it's actually a 14.3% 5-year average investor ROI. That's if that $200,000 is taken out and not given back. You follow? I'm just trying to be additionally even more conservative on my numbers. Now we plugged in, okay, cap rates. Okay, watch this. Okay. I used a 6% cap rate year one, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, actually 6.5. I used a 6.2 cap rate in year three to come up with a value of $13 million to refinance into a Fannie Mae loan, get out of our bridge loan, and get some of our cash back. So the proceeds to distribute is about 39%. Okay? What if that was not a 6.2% cap rate? What if that was a 6% cap rate? Well, now it's a 47% cash out refi. 0.2% caused a value going from 13,600,000, from 13,170 to 13,600. 0.2%. You remember what Jeff was talking about cap rates? That's a serious jump depending on what your cap rate is. So you got to look at your exit cap rate. Now, so that you know, like Brookside, I used a 7% exit cap rate. It's way too high. That's one of the problems I've had. I've been too conservative on my numbers, and I went with more industry standards of bumping it up 0.1% every year as far as the cap rates going up. That could be low, that could be high. Who knows? Nobody has a crystal ball. However, I have to be realistic on what that number is, and at least that's going up. So here's if you kept it at a 6, let's go back over here to year 3. Okay, so that was 13,395,000. 13,395,000, right? Well, a 6.5 cap and a 6 cap are a huge difference. 6.5 and 6. 15,595 up from 14,395. So watch your exit cap rates. So again, the investment presentation that goes over 5 years, and here are the returns that we project. Is anybody in here not invested with me before? Come on, be brave here. Okay, good. This is something that I like to do that's a little bit different. As I said here, if somebody that invests $100,000 net of everything, this is what should be expected. Okay, so we can say if you put in 100 grand, this is what you should expect, rather than getting what the property does and all these other fuzzy numbers that are meant to confuse you. $100,000 year one. Look, I'm saying because I took that extra $200,000 out, don't expect anything the first year because this is a value play. Okay, we're doing $25,000 in CapEx. Don't expect anything. Year two, 6.2%. Year 3, 37% because of the refinance. Hopefully that could be higher, but don't know. Then 52%, then year 5. I anticipate holding this longer than 5 years, just like all the properties. If I were to take that out 7 years, it'd be even better. 10 years, it'd be even better as far as the overall return. But I need to have an exit date just for planning purposes. We'll adjust that based on what the market's doing and where we want to be, et cetera. But that gives per year average, after everything, except for it doesn't take into account tax benefits. So most of that return should be tax-free until the sale. Yes, ma'am?
How long do you really want to hold it? You want to hold it 10 years?
I'd like to hold it 20 years. Based on the fact that, hey, it's still going to go up, it's still going to be generating cash flow. I don't like flipping. I just don't like flipping at all. So, no, that's another benefit. If we do a bridge loan, we can do a Fannie Mae refinance. Then we can do one supplemental later on, as long as we have at least 5 years left on the loan. So we do a 12-year loan in year 2. So it gets us out 14 years. So we can do another supplemental basically in year 8 or 9. 7, 8. After the new loan. Yeah, so in year 7, 8, so you do it in year 2, and then we can do it in year 7, 8, or 9 and do another refinance. And we might do it earlier than that because we're looking at like Tribeca doing it now to lock in low rates, to lock in that return, get 100% of our money back. Then we're playing with house money.
So then ongoing, we're always going to look at that 5% a year?
No, that goes up every year after that. Because even this one, it's not 5.2. If we don't sell it, this projection is 6.2. But that's 6.2 on the original number, but you've already got almost 50% of your money back. After refinance, property values could go up because they can look and see that loan amount. But we've been adjusting for property taxes to go up anyway. And it's got to be what I think I'm sandbagging on the property tax amounts in years to come because the other stuff is not valued at $95,000 a door. So I think we're safe on those property taxes. Next question.
What percentage do you anticipate for Fannie Mae loans?
What percentage on Fannie Mae loan? They fluctuate all the time. You can now get Fannie Mae loan. We can get, if we go with the green program, 4.9% back down to 4.9% now. So that's going to fluctuate. But in what I used in this example on our refinance, I used 5% in my year 2 refinance. Here, 5.25. We can bump that up and see what happens. Now our overall yield, if that's 5.25%, is 14.1. Okay? All right, so let's go back over here. Questions?
One more.
Yes.
What about asbestos treatment when you rehab? Is it included in the 25K?
What about asbestos abatement in the rehab? You account for that? No, you can answer a question. You can't talk. Okay, so his answer was, as long as we're not disturbing more than 160 square feet in a unit, we do not have to abate for that. Now, on all properties that have asbestos anywhere, it's usually in the texture or the ceiling. And we have plans that we're required to have in place to address any of that. If there is asbestos, how we treat that when we're doing something in a unit. For example, there's a hole in a wall. We cut it out. As long as it follows this procedure, then we can go ahead and do it. This deal, Amber Vista, what was that first number up here that we needed to raise? We needed to raise $3.8 million. And no, we can't do that. Okay, so Jeremy, the way that this works, is we find the property, we negotiate the property, create the business plan, work with the management team to come up with that plan, validate the numbers, get it tied up, put under contract, negotiate a loan, do the due diligence, create the business plan, and that's pretty much what this is a business plan. And then Brian does a private placement memorandum. He hands that off to Jeremy, who says, who's interested? And then he goes out and he raises, in this case, $3.8 million. Our average the overall average is $78,000 with people that have put in anywhere from, what's the lowest anybody's ever put in? The lowest anybody's put in is $25,000. The highest anybody's put in is $1 million. So we have investors from $25,000 to $1 million in any one project. But our average is $78,000. So if you say $100,000, that's only 38 people. And we've got 90 in here right now. So he's the gatekeeper on that. If you're interested in getting a private placement memorandum, talk to Jeremy. And we need to have a pre-existing relationship, which quite honestly, most of you are coming here numerous times a year anyway. So we have a relationship and he'll meet with you and see if it's right. And get a private placement memorandum over to you. And then you would have to fill that out and go through that whole process. Just so that I can feel better, who would be interested in investing in this? Okay, there's 45 people right there. Okay? So that's going to be pretty full pretty quick. Repeat the question specifically.
How does sponsors' ownership affect passive investors' returns?
That's why I do that thing that if you put in $100,000, this is what to expect, because I net all of that out. So you're not getting, hey, this property does this, but I don't get that. What do I get? So I put in there what you get. Let's see here. Okay, a couple more things. Third annual horse race, Hats and Horses. Who's going to that this Saturday? Okay, ladies, my wife has come up with this. If you wear a hat, like a Derby style hat, whatever you would be, to Kentucky Derby type thing, there's a competition. And we're going to have a $500 gift card to the Four Seasons. You can spend, I think, in the spa for a spa day or hotel room, whatever it is. So $500 for wearing a hat and getting voted on there. Okay, so do that. And my wife is ineligible; she can't win. Okay, she already got the spa. Yeah, we've got to go buy that, and while we're there, what the hell? So that's going to be from 1 o'clock. It says till 5. Food's going to be available from like 1 to 3. And open bar the whole time. And I think it's at 5:35. So you can wait until after that. 5:35 is post time for the Belmont. And I don't know if anybody watches horse races or not, but there's a horse called Justified that if he wins the Belmont, or she, I don't even know. If he wins, then he wins the Triple Crown. Okay, so that'll be the third race, and that'll be at 5:35. So we get to hang out there. There's a cash bar. My wife also put on there that Derby tire is encouraged. So she's dressing my happy ass up in Derby attire. So somebody please, don't make me alone in that.
What is Derby attire?
Look it up.
Ascot.
An ascot. For me, it's a bow tie. I don't wear a regular tie, but I'm going to have a bow tie on that I'm going to have to borrow from Garrett. Linen jacket, blue pants, 2-tone shoes. I might go get a what are those called? What's the hat? Fedora. A Panama hat, it's something like that. It doesn't matter. Either way, please come. The way that's going to work is there's going to be that same banner that's outside. The main gate, I think, where the valet parking is, I think it's gate 5, is where there will be somebody, Brian will be there. And go up there. You can valet park or walk in and stop there, and you get a ticket, check in with him, get a ticket. You're going to go inside, upstairs, and we have our own private room, our own private betting booths, and our own private restrooms. We've got a patio outside to go watch the races or inside on the screens, etc. It's a lot of fun. You mix and mingle. There's no presentation. There's nothing else. And the big thing, this is the real big treat. Brian Johnson is going to be there, so you actually get to meet him. You're going to see him tight. Okay. Next road trip. Oh, this is an old one. That was May 19th. Okay, so we're not going to have a road trip this month because we're doing the horse races. But next month, we will have a road trip the Saturday after ours. And we are going to go to Brookside. Exterior rehab is done. They're working on doing the interiors, so we'll be able to show everybody that. Parking will be tight, but that's where that'll be. So I think that's all the announcements that I had. Oh, one more thing. I had mentioned doing this for, okay, look in the back. See the two boys standing back there? Okay. Those are my stepsons. And they want to learn more about real estate, and they only half pay attention to what I'm doing. They do have their own lives. They're both in college. And so I'm going to do for them and for my son also a training session more geared toward that age. So just I'm looking at maybe like June 20th, maybe. Who has young adults that you would want that would be there? Not that you would want to be there, that would be there. So in person. Okay, raise your hands up high so I can count real quick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, cool. And one online. Okay. So 10 or 11. So I'll do that nice, small, intimate group and probably provide pizza and pizza and beer. That's what he wants. But no, pizza and Cokes I don't want to sit around and do that. Young adult, 18 to 24. It doesn't matter. We can fudge it too. Okay. 28's okay. All right. Any other questions? We will have a private placement memorandum out this week. And that's even better. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, man.
Okay. So you got to contact him. He sends out the private placement memorandums. Then to make it easier on you, you can bring checks on Saturday. Make it easy on you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Comments, thoughts, ideas? Great. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. I encourage you to share this information. It's free information for everybody so that they can learn also. Like our Facebook page and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Darwin German Real Estate Investments, so that you can get all of the content. We go through everything, give it all away to you, educate you so that you can be informed and educated investors, and happy investing.